From Batman to Superman, a new hero will arrive. And he's 14 years old. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Nerd News. I'm your host, Chris Chavez, and today we're going to be talking about DC's newest movie, in that of Shazam! You know, honestly, I feel like I'm the last one to review this movie. I saw the movie last night and I haven't had time to actually get to the theater to watch it, but alas, I have watched it. And I feel like, do you remember A Christmas Story? Remember Ralphie's brother? And how he was all compact in his suit, his little, like, he couldn't move, and he would always run behind Ralphie. Wait for me, Ralphie, wait for me. That's exactly what I feel like. Also, before we get started, guys, there will be a little bit of spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen the movie, pause this video, go watch Shazam, then come back, unpause it, and then we'll look at my beautiful gray bearded face and we can proceed. But nonetheless, we are here, folks, so let's get into it. So, Shazam is, I want to say, the fifth movie in this DCU. Would we really call it a DCU anymore? Because the universe is split up now. Now they're focusing on smaller solo movies. So, let's rewind, let's fix that. Now, Shazam is the newest movie under DC, falling behind the hits of Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Now, Shazam is about 14-year-old Billy Batson. Billy is an orphan who bounces from foster home to foster home in search of his biological mother. Billy ultimately does get taken in by her foster family, who has already adopted a bunch of other kids. It's almost like Professor X's School for the Gifted, but this time, instead of mutants, they're all just orphan kids. That sounds horrible when I say it out loud. It was different in my head. So Billy himself is selected by the wizard Shazam and gets the powers of Shazam through the wizard and is passed on to Billy Batson, who in turn, every time he says the wizard's name, Shazam is transformed into an adult version of Billy, just with crazy superpowers. So think Big meets Superman. Now, this movie is all heart. I mean, of course there's a superhero element, but there is an underlining great message in this movie that everyone belongs. Family is important. You have a place, you have a home. Even though you feel like you are lost in this world, you have people there that love you and will take care of you. So there's a great message in this movie, don't get me wrong. And a big thing about this movie is, what would you do if you were 14 years old and you can transform into this giant god, essentially? Like, what would you do at that age as a 14-year-old boy? Well, you do all the things that you couldn't do as a kid. You buy alcohol, you make videos and post them online of the things that you can do, much like what I'm doing. He also visits a strip club. Now, that's really funny because that's all that 14-year-old boys think about. Now, this movie is directed by David Sandberg. I feel like David is DC's Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi, of course, directed Thor Ragnarok. So in this movie, I feel like he captured the superhero element in all of us. When you're a kid and you read a book, you can see yourself flying through the clouds. You can see yourself with laser beams. You transport yourself from the page onto the screen, and actually seeing a boy go from a 14-year-old boy into a superhero, I can relate to that on so many different levels. Now, the casting for Shazam, Zachary Levi was absolutely spot on. If you're unfamiliar with Zachary Levi, he was Chuck in NBC's hit show, Chuck. So in the casting of Zachary Levi, a lot of fans were rubbed the wrong way because he didn't have the physical physique necessary to play Shazam. But you have to think of the other side of it, the acting chops. You have to have an actor who physically can look the role, but that can play a 14-year-old boy at the same time of looking menacing and imposing. Another great actor in this movie is John Glover. Now, John played Dr. Savannah's dad. The funny thing though is every time I see this actor in a movie, I always refer to him from one specific movie, Gremlins 2. He played the head of the corporation of the big building that the Gremlins kind of took over. So no matter what he's in, that's the only thing I see is him wrestling with the Gremlin in the shredder. Now, the protagonist in this movie is Dr. Sivana, played by arguably the best part of Green Lantern in Mark Strong. If you don't know who Mark Strong is, he was Sinestro in Green Lantern, and he was also in Kingsman. He has a bald head. Now, Dr. Sivana had the coolest power in this movie. He could control the 7 deadly sins. Physically, the 7 deadly sins. They would come out of him in this mist and then transform perfectly into this actual tangible matter that was actually pretty terrifying. The first time you see the 7 deadly sins are in the wizard Shazam's chamber. And the funny thing about it, there were 2 things that popped in my mind when I saw that scene for the first time. You see at the end of the hallway, Wizard Shazam sitting on this giant throne, and automatically my mind went to Mortal Kombat, and I thought, Shao Kahn should have been sitting on that throne instead. Who's in my chair? And the second part is, the statues of all the 7 deadly sins reminded me of the Terror Dogs in Ghostbusters. If you don't remember that part of Ghostbusters, well, here's a clip for you. And if you've seen Shazam, that's hilarious. The jokes in this movie were spot on for the genre that it was in. It landed 14-year-old kid jokes, and it's great because the theater that I was in literally had kids that age or a little bit younger. So when a joke would come up, you would hear this amazing gaggle of geese from all these little kids laughing, and that made the experience even better. Now, I wanted to talk about one specific scene that illustrated this point perfectly. There's a scene where a boy is playing in front of his window with a Batman and a Superman doll, and he's making them crash into each other. Well, as he makes them crash into each other, literally at the same time, out of his window, you see Shazam and Dr. Sivana hit. They punch in the air. The boy drops the action figures and looks up in this just dropping like amazement, and I had all the feels because I pictured that moment in my mind as a kid all the time. So did you see Shazam at all this weekend? If you did, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you thought about the movie. And until next time, guys, just watch as many movies as you possibly can, and remember, Mark Strong is the best thing about Green Lantern.